It's not what you say, it's how you say it. The way you speak can either create the impression that you're a charming gentleman or an uneducated ruffian. When you think of famous gentlemen, both in the real world and fictional characters, they all share certain similarities with their speech. In today's video, I'm going to tell you what those qualities are and how you can implement them. So let's begin with number 1. In a world where many people are shouting for attention, the gentleman remains soft-spoken. It's much more elegant to keep your voice to a reasonable volume. It makes you always sound calm and composed when you're talking. A gentleman does not get into shouting matches or try and speak over other people. He instead allows the quality of what he says to hold attention. Now, there is a difference between being soft-spoken and gentlemanly and being timid and feminine. Even when speaking softly, allow your voice to resonate and project fully, and deliver what you say with confidence and clarity, which some of the upcoming tips will help you with. The gentleman speaks boldly, just not aggressively, and he's confident in what he has to say without being arrogant or dismissive of others. Another benefit of being soft-spoken is that people will find your voice pleasant and relaxing to listen to. A great example of this is Douglas Murray. I don't necessarily agree with everything he has to say, but his voice makes for a very relaxing experience anytime I listen to him on a podcast. Now, a gentleman very, very rarely raises his voice, even in anger. I can't say I've never been guilty of this, as we all have, but I always look back on those times as my ugliest moments. There's nothing gentlemanly or even manly about losing control of your emotions. So keep your voice in check, whether you're feeling hot or cold under the surface. Different people have differing opinions on whether or not a gentleman can swear. I recently watched a video by Ash of the Chaps Guide in which he said he thinks it's unnecessary to use profanity and that it should be greatly avoided. Although I have the greatest respect for Ash, I don't necessarily think it's true that a gentleman never swears.
Shocking.
I actually think swearing can be a powerful tool of emphasis, camaraderie, and humor. However, a gentleman is aware of his profanity and only uses it as a tool when appropriate. He does not F and Jeff his way through every sentence, and he's aware of his audience and if they might be offended by that. But I think Stephen Fry has some good thoughts on the subject of swearing, when he said, "People who used to say swearing was a sign of poor vocabulary, such utter nonsense." But you'll notice that Mr. Fry does not swear very much himself. He only really uses those words to create a desired effect. If you use profanity wittingly and sparingly, you'll appear much more intelligent and sophisticated than the man who habitually swears in every sentence. So always know your audience and don't make curse words a part of your everyday speech. A gentleman is well educated, whether traditionally or self-educated, and the way he speaks reflects his learning. It's important to construct sentences with proper grammar when speaking. Give your sentences a similar level of structure to what they would have if you were writing them down. Most people speak in long, trailing, rambling thoughts with no clear beginning, middle, or end. However, a gentleman crafts his sentences with poise, creating a much more engaging experience for his listener. This comes with self-awareness and practice, but I think it's useful to slow yourself down to allow time to think. You can also speak in shorter sentences, as I often do on this channel. If you are really serious about improving your speech, I recommend you start a podcast as a hobby. As you listen back to the recordings, you'll notice things in your speech that you want to change and improve. And now you'll have the awareness to work on those bad habits in future conversations. I am not of the opinion that a gentleman needs to have any particular kind of accent. I think you should speak in the way that's natural to you. And the characteristics of your regional accent can be one of your greatest charms. For example, think of a Southern gentleman, or Sean Connery's Scottish accent in the James Bond movies. However, you must speak in a way that can be understood by whomever you're talking with. Some accents can be so harsh that they are incomprehensible to people from a different region. I think a gentleman is considerate of that, makes an effort to be understood. This might mean avoiding certain words and phrases that are only part of his regional dialect, if he's talking to somebody from a different area. Even just being a British person in the US, some words don't translate the same way and I've had to adapt. Same with the pronunciation of certain words. Asking for a glass of water in a noisy bar can be a nightmare. So if you have an accent, be mindful of this and be sure to speak clearly when in conversation with somebody from a different place. One of the greatest things that distinguishes a gentleman from an ordinary man in conversation is that he is a great listener. So many people simply wait for the other person to finish talking so they can have their say. But it's much more pleasant to have a conversation as a two-way street. To show that you are listening, be engaged with your body language and make strong eye contact. Give non-verbal forms of feedback like nodding, facial expressions, and vocalizations like and ask follow-up questions and make comments about what they just said. I remember when Prince Philip passed away in 2021, one of the things that he was most remembered for was what a great listener he was and how he always made others feel appreciated and valued in the conversation. A gentleman actually prefers to steer the topic of conversation away from himself and onto the other person. He takes the opinion that everyone has something interesting to say and he is there to hear it. So next time you're in conversation, don't try and make it about you, instead make the other person the focus. Aim to discover what they are passionate about, get them speaking candidly on the subject, and watch their eyes light up thanks to your interest. While it's charming to show that you are actively listening to the other person, it's absolutely necessary not to interrupt. Think about times when you have been interrupted in the middle of a sentence. Perhaps it was in a business meeting, on a date, or just in conversation with friends. It made you feel like they didn't value what you had to say, or that they were bored by you. So whatever the reason it is that you feel the urge to interrupt, hold it. Patience is a virtue that every gentleman should have, and it only takes a small amount of patience to allow the other person to finish before you ask them a follow-up question or make your own point. Although a gentleman possesses a wide vocabulary and a library of knowledge inside his mind, he doesn't feel it's necessary to show off. The gentleman knows that using words in conversation that others aren't familiar with only makes him look foolish and arrogant. Consider the audience and speak in a way that can be understood by everyone. Nobody cares if you are a walking dictionary. Even many of the greatest authors of the last 100 years have written using simple language. Instead, rely on the quality of what you say and how you interact with others to reveal your intelligence. What's more, a gentleman does not show off his vast, specialist knowledge on a particular subject unless he is sure that his listener is interested. Even then, he speaks using basic terms that everyone can understand, rather than trying to impress them with a barrage of jargon. Gentlemen, I hope you have enjoyed today's video. I think listening and communication skills are two of the most fascinating aspects of human life. Navigating them with sophistication and charm will go a long way in helping you on your journey to become a gentleman. Until tomorrow's video, I highly encourage you to check out the one that I made on body language. Speech and body language go hand in hand, so you'll definitely want to apply those principles to become a well-rounded communicator. Thank you for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next video.